Welcome to the Safe Village, a community for everyone who cares about student safety and well-being. My name is Sydney. I'm the CEO of Saasyan, and my guest today is Dr Regine Muradian. Regine is a clinical psychologist. She's the author of numerous children's books that focus on their emotional and mental well-being. And she's a staunch advocate of online safety education for educators across the US as one of the co-founders for Team Project Rise. Regine, welcome to the Safe Village.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here, and I know we're going to cover a number of topics. You're a busy person. You're a mom. You're an author. You're running your own business, but that doesn't seem to be enough. You're chasing something even bigger now. So I'm going to ask you, Regine, what's top of mind?
Oh, so first of all, thank you so much. It's so great being here with you today on this incredible topics that we're going to be discussing. So today, top of mind, one thing that I'm really working hard on with our team is I'm the co-founder of Team Project Rise, which was created as a result of the pandemic. We are a group of educators, psychologists, and also we have an attorney in our group. And we all came together to collaborate to create a much needed training for teachers in schools across the nation. So we felt that as psychologists, clinicians, and educators, we felt that teachers have, we've all seen a significant decline in our students. I don't know if you felt this too with your children, but I'm seeing across the board with clients and my own kids, a decline in mental health. And this is happening across the country in all classrooms. So with our team, we are combined with about 60 years experience in mental health advocacy and education.
Fantastic. So just to set some context for all our listeners, I'm Sydney from Sydney, based in Australia. Regine is in California. So the reference she's making and across the nation, she's talking about the US market, which is actually one of the markets we're moving into from Saasyan's perspective. So tell me more about your observations. What are some of the statistics? What have you guys seeing, and what happened during the pandemic for you to sort of call yourself and your colleagues into action?
Yes. So what we've been noticing is, and this is really what the training is going to focus on, it's going to be a webinar type training under an hour. And the training is going to focus on how to recognize and respond to things like inattention, depression-like symptoms, disruptive behaviors in the classroom. So we created this mental health training program that's going to give teachers the tools that they need in order to help identify early warning signs of mental health issues and appropriately refer, appropriately know how to interact with the student and what to say as they're facing these challenges. And this will make teachers' life easier because they'll be able to teach their lessons. If a child's not happy and not feeling well if we think about it, it's been over a year and a half, and you and I were talking about this earlier, still in this somewhat quarantine, that's going to have a huge impact on their mental health. So them coming back to the classroom, it's going to be tough, right? Just sitting there, having a lot of homework. So we're also telling teachers to really take it slow and really teaching them and explaining to them what we've been seeing on our end, how much students have been struggling.
That's interesting because you're taking, if you like, the early detection and I'm not going to say prevention, but really early detection to the front line, because it's the teacher who's in the classroom with the kids 90% of the time. And when we say in the classroom, whether it's virtual or physical, they're the ones that have that will potentially have the opportunity to detect things early. And I guess from our community here at Safe Village, it's all about the student safety and well-being. We want to detect and prevent rather than wait until we then have to act. So that's going to be quite a challenge, taking teachers who traditionally may not have had opportunity to get trained in the know-how of what a clinical psychologist like you has had. So what's the state of play over there? Like, do teachers get that kind of training in the US? And what resources are available, and what is Team Project Rise doing to change that with the webinars and things like that?
Yes. So unfortunately, I mean, there are some mental health trainings, but there's nothing in terms of, for example, one of our incredible team members, Corky O'Rourke, she has over 30 years experience. In her 30 years of teaching, she's never taken a mental health training. So even more recently, as they're returning to school, there's a bunch of trainings that they need to take as teachers, 6 or 7 trainings by the end of the month, and nothing with mental health training. So there's a problem here, right? So the types of training that are out there, diversity training, sexual harassment training, there's even some COVID training that are all mandated, but there's nothing really, no one's really talking about the mental health piece. That's more voluntary. So one thing we wanted to make clear is we're not expecting, and you bring up a really important point, because I think that's what people think is, well, we are teachers. We didn't go to school for psychology or mental health. We don't want to touch that. And I think that's why we have seen a resistance in touching this material. However, this is all about, like you said, I love it what you said, is teachers are going to be like first responders. So all they have to do is recognize something. So let me give you an example. For example, I mean, I've certainly encountered this with my child. The child doesn't turn in an assignment, correct? Maybe the parent doesn't find out until they're 5 or 6 assignments in. Something's happening, something's going on. Maybe they're distracted, maybe they forgot, maybe there's other issues happening. But now the child has all Fs, right? This is a kid maybe who went from a 3.9, and I've seen many cases like this. These kids were 3.9 GPA here in America is, you know, all A's, they're doing pretty well in school, to going to all Fs. So there's a concern there. So when we interviewed teachers before we started this program, a lot of the times what we heard from teachers is they're just so overwhelmed. There's so much to do that they can't keep track of everything. Students don't want to step back or approach the teachers. So teachers need to be on top of it and not wait till it's 1 or 2 assignments in. And we're going to see more and more of this. But when teachers are more understanding and they approach it, it's just really about having a really empathic conversation and letting the student know that they are there for them if they need support or help, not mental health support or help, but support with their studies, support with their homework, and that they can refer appropriately, you know, and then just let someone else take care of that. Most schools have counselors, but it is the early detection that we're really looking out for.
Yeah, so that's and we were talking about this before, right? We're so aligned in that philosophy and the principle of it's that early detection. And even if you think about what Saasyan does, we're not going to go and counsel the kids or whatever. All we're trying to do is help alert the right people to come in at the right time for the right child, so that you know, and that's what we're doing. And we're saying technology can play its bit, but the whole reason we've got the Safe Village running here is because we're saying technology alone is not enough. We need people to get involved, and we need ownership and accountability, but not overwhelmed. And I think what you're saying there is you're trying to find the right balance by saying, here's a bit of education, here's a bit of support, but you don't need to be overwhelmed. You don't have the ultimate responsibility in counseling them. Just direct them to the right person, but pick it up early. Let's not wait until it's too late. So yes. Fantastic mission. So where's the project at, and how progressed is it, and what are you up to in terms of the US market?
Yes, so right now we're in the process of just closing up production, such as editing and all that great stuff. And we're really hoping to have the final webinar up and going. Let's crossing fingers, everything goes well as soon as mid-September. And then it's just going to be about distribution after that to schools so that every teacher has access to it. So if it's hosted on a webinar platform, it's easy. Teachers can take it at their leisure when they want. They can go back and watch it. There's a great information. And for example, just explaining what anxiety is. I think a lot of people, just lay people who are not psychologists or in the mental health field, have a general idea of what it is, but you don't really know how to recognize it. So even with something like anxiety, you know, I could just be sitting here and you would never know that I'm anxious, right? But I can teach you some tips and tools that you can kind of pick up that students do exhibit in the classroom to make you a little more aware. So exactly what you were saying with what you're doing with Saasyan is the early detection. It's like getting that alert, and now we know what to do.
Fantastic. We've had a couple of guests come on the Safe Village and share some insights on work they're doing for online safety education. But what I love about this is different. This is about educating the educators around detecting the emotional and mental triggers that may be signs of something's going on. So this is a little bit more nuanced, but way as important, if not more important than protect yourself, don't talk to strangers, cover, I'm not reducing all of that, but this is really powerful. So look, I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about your role as an author. Tell me about the inspiration behind Frankie and Francine, who are two characters that lead a couple of your books that you've authored.
Yes. So Frankie and the Worry Bees is my first book that was born out of the pandemic. I started writing as early as in March 2020. And just like Team Project Rice came to fruition, Frankie was created when I started seeing that kids were not connecting online. They were having a lot of anxiety. They were having a lot of trouble focusing. And it just really started with me just creating these little illustrations. I'm not an illustrator by far, so just like some, what do you call it, a pencil figure. And it was all the idea of positive thinking, right? And the idea, I'm really big on journaling and writing down your negative thoughts, putting it in a bubble. And then I came up with this analogy as I was explaining to kids, because I see kids as young as 8. I said, it's like a swarm of bees swarming around you. Can you just imagine what that can feel like? And then they started sharing and said, well, what are the bees telling you? So it was just a way that I was just communicating with them. And we just tested it out, and I had them write down all the negative things that the bees were telling them, and how to switch that into a positive, right? So they were switching all the negative thoughts into positive. And then they would just, I would give that as homework. They would come back to the next session and tell me how great they felt that when they were repeating those positives every day. So that's when I knew that I had to turn Frankie into a story, and that's how it started. And Frankie was born.
Yeah, but I didn't check this with you before we started recording. Is Frankie by any chance right behind you? Is that the
yes?
Is that the character? Yeah. Excellent. And I can see you've got a couple of
He's right there. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Frankie's right behind you. Awesome.
Frankie's right behind me.
Yeah, and then you published it in a number of different languages, and you've got distribution now globally. Tell us about that. This is awesome.
Yes. So during this time too, I'm sure you heard there was a war happening in Armenia. And this was just the only way that I felt. I did a lot of volunteer work, helping, obviously virtually and with mental health training for professionals who were there on the front lines, helping the kids there. And I wanted to send them my books in English, but they said, well, they don't speak English. It's not going to work out. So I said, okay, let's translate it into Armenian. So I had them translated and distributed there to several villages with the children who were displaced from the war, and some kids who are now in Artsakh. So it was so great to see it finally in their hands at summer camp. And then of course I had to do it in French as well, because that's my second language. And so I'm just really interested now. Next is to just do it in various languages, maybe Spanish, and expand the series in terms of the lingo. And then my other book is Francine and Her Special Talents. And that one was born really out of, honestly, just, my kids were a big inspiration. My clients were a big inspiration. COVID was a big inspiration with Francine, because I was just so amazingly impressed. And I did quite a few lives on Instagram. I saw children who were baking. One of my friends, her daughter started a baking business. I saw kids getting really creative when they just got tired of the devices and being online all day, that their minds were actually expanding and they were trying to figure out, what else can I do? I saw kids starting clothing businesses, jewelry, cooking, baking, you name it. I mean, it's amazing, incredible at such a young age. So Francine is really all about increasing self-confidence, teaching kids self-love, and teaching them that it's not just about sports, that even if you're not good at sports, or you didn't get onto that sports team, that there's other things you can do, and to really sit with yourself and dive in deep and figure out what is your talent, because I really believe we all have something that we're good at.
Brilliant. So inspiring. So we'll definitely add the links to the show notes, both for Team Project Rise as well as the books that you've published, because these are fantastic resources. But as a segue for our listeners today, Regine, I'm wondering if you've got a couple of tidbits. So our listeners are parents, our listeners are teachers and school leaders who care about student safety and well-being. Given your vast experience and the number of different resources you've created, is there a couple of tips you can give us today that we can share with our listeners on things to think about given the context and what's top of mind for you?
Yes. Well, I'll share something that I feel is the most common tip I'm being asked nowadays, which is, what are some tips on helping children feel at ease as they return back to school? So this is one of the things, I'm seeing a lot of kids upset right now. They're actually scared going back. They're fatigued. There's a lot of anxiety. So this hopefully can be helpful to any child who may be experiencing this, and for parents to talk to their kids about it. So number one is helping them to focus on things they can control, and helping their child to really sit back and have that conversation, and reminding them how brave they are and how strong they are, because we really went through a very tough year. And I think kids don't realize, without a conversation, how resilient they are. It's so easy for us to forget a challenge that we went through. We forget about that challenge because we move right past it and then we're happy. But sometimes when we get back, it's like a cycle. When you get back into that negative thinking, or something happens in your life that maybe is, more on the negative side, really helping kids remember a time where they rose to the occasion, where they succeeded, where they were sad, but look, you remember how hard that was, but you did get through it and you survived it and now you're here. So try to help them engage into that feeling. Very, very powerful, actually. Another thing is, I'm noticing also parents just jumping into a million activities right away, and that's going to make them burn out. So I'm recommending parents to really focus on the things that they can start up again, and start up slowly and give them some time. I'm even also, as I'm doing teacher trainings, just on going back to school, is don't bombard them with homework right away, and just ask them how they are. The first week of school should be really about how they're doing. How was their first day? What was it like for them being home? What were the things they loved or they didn't like? So that it creates a wholesome conversation, and builds also empathy and compassion.
Fantastic. Such good advice. And I'm sure, as a parent of 3, I'm definitely taking that to heart. And I'm sure other parents and educators listening to this will take that advice. Look, my final question, Regine, is, given the enormity of your mission, what is it about the work that you do, or your mission, that people don't really get, that hopefully in today's broadcast of this episode, if there's one message that you could pass on to them so they can have a little bit more understanding to make your mission and your work more successful, what would that be?
The first thing I'm thinking about is communication. I think as parents, as teachers, as educators, caregivers, we're missing that connection with our kids. And number one, because they are on devices all day, right? For a year and a half, they've been with social media. There's also less contact and less talking and less conversations. So this is really a top priority. And I think this is why we are also where we are at in terms of, going back also to Team Project Rise, is I think that that's where the mental health piece is just so missed, because we don't really ask, how are you? How are you feeling? It's kind of like, no, let's just jump into this math problem. We got to do this. We have an agenda to finish today. But how about coming into a classroom and saying, I want everyone to take out their pens or their notebooks, and let's just write one thing we are grateful about today. Write one thing that you love about yourself. Write one thing that you did for someone else. So I feel that that one-on-one, that connection is lost. And it's all about us rebuilding that, just like you're doing with, I mean, Saasyan just reminds me so much of that, because it's not just putting people on alert, but it's making them mindful of what's really going on. Technology is amazing. We need it, right? It's part of our life. It's only going to become even more accessible, and more things are going to come out. And that's why I feel even as parents, we need to work so much harder than we are right now, or than our parents did, because our kids are just really fading away in terms of communicating, from just making eye contact. How are you? Oh, good. How's your day? Oh, great. And you're not getting much detail. So that is really our job, to create that. And that's why I love in schools, and I'm not sure how it's in Australia, that when they do group work and when they conceptualize situations, and they really make them brainstorm and think about and create a conversation out of anything, really, just to get them talking and sharing emotion.
Wow, so much to think about, and but so important, and sort of, you know, there's so much noise out there. It's what has to rise to the top for all of us as parents, as leaders, as educators, and thank you for sharing your insights with us. So to our listeners, you know, fantastic resources right here. Please go check out Regine's books, Frankie and the Worry Bees, as well as Francine and her special talents. Check out the Team Project Rise webinars when they come out. So we'll again link them when they're available on the show notes. And absolutely, I will be taking some action from your guidance to us today, and I hope you do as well. Dr. Regine Muradian, thank you for being on The Safe Village.
Thank you for having me.